Captain Lee Taemin sat in his command chair, watching the stars move slowly past the bridge windows. The UES Iron Will had been on patrol for 3 weeks now, and nothing interesting had happened. Space was big and mostly empty, which made patrol duty very boring. "Captain, we're getting something strange on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Park So-young from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, and she looked worried. Tae-Min turned his chair toward her. "What kind of strange?" "It's a signal, sir, very weak. I almost missed it." So-young pressed some buttons on her console. "It's not from any human ship or station. The pattern is completely different." Chief Engineer Kim Jae-ho looked up from his repair work. He was a big man with oil stains on his uniform. "Could be equipment failure. These old communication arrays break down all the time." "No, sir, this is real," So-young said. She put the signal through the speakers. Static filled the bridge, mixed with sounds that didn't sound human at all. "Listen to this." The sounds were high and musical, like singing, but sadder. Taemin had never heard anything like it. "Can you clean it up?" So-young worked at her station for several minutes. Slowly, the static got quieter, and the alien sounds got clearer. Now they could hear what sounded like voices, many voices, all talking at once in fear. "I'm running it through the translation program," So-young said. Her face was pale. "Captain, I think this is a distress call." The translation program beeped, and words appeared on the main screen. The computer had turned the alien sounds into human language, but the message made Taemin's blood run cold. "To anyone who can hear this message, we are the Villani of the world Cathara. We are dying. They came from the dark spaces between stars. They consume everything. Our cities burn. Our children cry. If anyone receives this, please remember that we existed. Please remember that we loved beauty and peace. We have no weapons. We cannot fight. In 3 days, maybe 4, there will be no more Villani. This is our last call to the universe. Goodbye." The bridge became very quiet. Jae-ho stopped working on his repairs. So-young stared at her screen with tears in her eyes. Tae-min felt something cold in his stomach. "Play it again," he said. So-young replayed the message. This time they could hear children's voices mixed in with the adult ones. The young voices were asking why the bad things were happening. Some were calling for their parents. "Where is this coming from?" Taemin asked. "The signal is very old, sir. It started its journey about 2 weeks ago. The source is..." So-young checked her instruments. "About 4 light years from here. A system called Cathara, near the edge of known space." Jae-ho walked over to the captain's chair. "Sir, our orders are to patrol the shipping lanes and report back to base in 10 days. We're not supposed to go investigating alien signals." Taemin knew Jae-ho was right. The Terran Federation had strict rules about first contact with alien species. There were procedures to follow, forms to fill out, and committees that had to approve everything. But the voices in that message kept playing in his head. "So-young, can you tell how many of them there are?" "The signal suggests a large population, sir, maybe millions. But if their message is correct and this signal is 2 weeks old..." She didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. If the aliens said they had 3 or 4 days left and the message took 2 weeks to reach them, the Villani might already be dead. "What kind of enemy could destroy an entire species?" asked Ensign Moon Da-un, the young Marine who was standing guard on the bridge. "I don't know," Taemin said, "but I want to find out." "So-young, can you boost our communications array? I want to try sending a message back." "Sir," Jae-ho said carefully, "that's definitely against regulations." Taemin looked at his old friend. They had served together for 15 years. Jae-ho was always the one who followed rules and kept them out of trouble. "I know, old friend, but listen to that message again. Tell me you can just fly away and pretend we never heard it." Jae-ho listened to the message one more time. When it finished, he sighed and shook his head. "You're going to get us all in trouble, Captain, but you're right, we can't just ignore this. So-young, boost the array. Send a message back to those coordinates." "What should I say, sir?" Taemin thought for a moment. "Tell them. Tell them that the humans heard their call. Tell them help might be coming, but we need to know if anyone is still alive. So Young worked at her station. Message sent, sir. But at this distance, it will take 2 weeks to reach them, and 2 weeks for any reply to come back. Then we go. There ourselves, Taman said. The bridge crew looked at him with surprise. Sir? Jeho said. Set course for the Cathara system, best possible speed. Captain, Jeho said slowly. That will take us completely off our patrol route. Command will want to know why we're not where we're supposed to be. Then we better have a good reason when we get there. Taemin stood up from his chair. Da-un, tell your Marines to check their equipment. We might be going into a combat zone. The young Marine's eyes got wide. Yes, sir. Jeho, I want the engines running at maximum efficiency and check all our weapon systems. Sir, we're just a patrol ship. We've got defensive weapons, but nothing for a real fight. I know, but we're what these people have right now. So Young, keep monitoring for any more signals from that system and start preparing a full report on everything we've heard. We'll need to send it back to Federation Command. As the Iron Will changed course toward the unknown system, Taemin stood at the front of the bridge and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, an entire species was dying, and they had asked the universe to remember them. The least he could do was try. Sir, So Young said quietly, what if we're too late? What if they're already gone? Taemin thought about the children's voices in the message. Then we find out what killed them, and we make sure the Federation knows about it. And if whatever killed them is still there when we arrive? Then we do our duty, Taemin said. We protect the innocent even if they're not human. The Iron Will flew through the darkness between stars, carrying a crew of 37 humans toward a system where they might find only death. But they flew toward it anyway, because sometimes the right thing to do is also the dangerous thing to do. Behind them, their original patrol route grew further away with each passing hour. Ahead of them, the Cathara system waited with its secrets and its horrors. None of them knew that this single decision to investigate an alien distress call would change the course of human history forever. The Iron Will dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cathara system. Captain Lee Taemin expected to see a normal star system with planets, maybe some space debris if there had been a war. What he saw instead made his stomach turn. My God, whispered Commander Choi Min-ho, Taemin's second in command. He had just come to the bridge and was staring at the main screen in horror. The system was full of ships, hundreds of them. But these were not normal ships. They looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh, each one the size of a city. They were connected to each other by thick tubes that pulsed with dark liquid. Some of the ships had parts that moved like they were alive. Captain, said Lieutenant Park So-young, her voice shaking, I'm reading massive energy signatures from those vessels. They're doing something to the fourth planet. The main screen zoomed in on a blue-green world that should have been beautiful. Instead, it looked like it was being eaten. Giant machines hung in the atmosphere like metal spiders, and streams of material flowed up from the surface into the alien ships. They're harvesting the planet, said Dr. Han Yu-jin, the ship's science officer. She had been studying the readings for several minutes. They're taking everything. The water, the atmosphere, the soil, even the rocks. What about life signs? Taemin asked. Yu-jin checked her instruments. There are some, but they're very weak and scattered. Most of the planet's surface shows no life at all. Sergeant Moon Da-un, who had brought a squad of Marines to the bridge, pointed at the screen. Sir, look at those smaller ships moving around. The big ones. The smaller vessels were different from the large harvesters. They looked more like traditional spacecraft, but they moved in patterns that hurt to watch. They would fly to the planet's surface and return carrying large containers. Those containers, Yu-jin said quietly, they're full of organic matter, living organic matter. The bridge fell silent as everyone understood what that meant. The aliens weren't just taking the planet's resources, they were taking the people. So Young, are you picking up any communications from the planet? Taemin asked. Very few, sir. Most are just automatic distress beacons. But I did find this. She played. A new message through the speakers. This time the voice was different, older, and more tired. This is Elder Veltai of the mountain city of Ashara. We are the last. The Devourers came to our city 7 days ago. They took our people, our animals, our plants, everything living. We few survivors hide in the deep caves, but they will find us soon. Their machines dig deeper every day. We can hear our people screaming from inside their ships, but we cannot help them. If anyone receives this message, do not come here. The Devourers will take you too. Flee while you can. Do not let them spread to other worlds. The message ended with sounds of drilling and terrible alien noises getting closer and closer. Captain, Minho said, we need to report this immediately. The Federation needs to know about this threat. Tae-min nodded, but he couldn't take his eyes off the dying planet. So Young, boost our communications array to maximum power. Send everything we've recorded back to Federation Command. Emergency priority. Sir, if I boost the array that much, those alien ships might detect us. Do it anyway. The Federation needs this information more than we need to stay hidden. As So Young worked on the communications, Yujin continued studying the alien ships. Captain, I'm detecting at least 3 different types of vessels. The large ones seem to be processing plants. They're breaking down everything they harvest. The medium ships are transports, but the small, fast ones, what about them? They're scouts, sir, and one of them just changed course toward us. On the main screen, they could see a ship that looked like a mechanical wasp heading their way. It was still very far away, but it was moving fast. How long? Until it reaches us? Tae-min asked. At current speed, about 2 hours, Minho reported. Jae-ho, can we outrun it? The chief engineer checked his console. Not easily, sir. That thing is fast, but I might be able to give us an edge if I push the engines past safety limits. Do it, but first I want to get closer to that planet. We need better scans of what we're dealing with. Sir, Dayan said, is that wise? If there are survivors, down there, then we need to know where they are and how many there are. Tae-min turned to his crew. I know this is dangerous, but we're the only humans who know this is happening. If we run now without learning everything we can, how many other worlds might die? The Iron Will moved deeper into the system, staying as far as possible from the main group of alien ships. As they got closer to Kethara, the details became more horrible. The planet's oceans were turning brown. The green continents were becoming gray and lifeless. Cities that should have held millions of people were now empty holes in the ground. I'm detecting movement in the northern mountain range, Yujin reported. Small groups hiding in caves and deep valleys. The survivors, So Young said. There are still Villani alive down there. How many? Tae-min asked. Maybe a few thousand. Out of what used to be a population of several billion. The numbers were almost impossible to understand. An entire civilization was being wiped out while they watched. Captain, Minho said, that scout ship is getting closer. And it's not alone, anymore. 3 more just joined it. Time to go, Tae-min decided. Jae-ho, get us out of here. Best possible speed. Where to, sir? Back toward human space. We need to deliver this information and we need backup. Tae-min looked at the dying planet one more time. So Young, keep broadcasting to any survivors. Tell them that humans know what's happening. Tell them we're going for help. What if help comes too late? Dayan asked. Then at least they'll know someone tried. As the Iron Will fled the Kethara system, the alien scout ships followed them for several hours before finally giving up the chase. The humans had escaped, but they carried with them knowledge of a horror beyond imagination. Captain, So Young said as they jumped to hyperspace, I've been analyzing the alien ship designs. They're not from any one species. It's like they're made from parts of dozens of different civilizations. You mean, I think the Devourers don't just kill other species, sir. They absorb them. They take their technology, their ships, even their people, and make them part of their own forces. How many species do you think they've destroyed? Yujin asked. So Young looked at her readings. Based on the different technologies I can identify, at least 20 different civilizations went into building those ships, maybe more. The bridge was quiet, as everyone thought about what that meant. 20 civilizations, each one probably containing billions of individuals, all consumed by the creatures they had just escaped. "Sir," Minho said, "our message to Federation Command will take 6 days to reach Earth. Even if they respond immediately, it will be almost 2 weeks before any help can arrive at Cathara." "The survivors don't have 2 weeks," Taemin said, "but it's what we have to work with." As the Iron Will raced toward human space carrying news of genocide, the Devourers continued their feast on Cathara. And somewhere in the deep caves of the northern mountains, the last few thousand Villani waited to die, not knowing that their cry for help had finally been heard. Admiral Yu Sungmin was eating breakfast in his quarters when the emergency alert sounded throughout the Federation command station above Earth. He had been in the military for 30 years, and he had never heard an alert that urgent before. He ran to the command center still wearing his pajamas. The night duty officer, Commander Park Jin-woo, was pale and shaking as he handed the Admiral a datapad. "Sir, this came in from Captain Lee Tae-min of the patrol ship Iron Will. Priority Alpha. Emergency transmission." Yu read the first few lines and felt his blood turn cold. "Are you sure this is real? Not some kind of mistake or equipment failure?" "We've verified the transmission 3 times, sir. It's real, and there's more." Park activated the main display, and the recorded message from the Villani began to play. The sounds of alien children crying for help filled the command center. Several officers stopped what they were doing to listen. When the message ended, the room was completely silent. "How old is this transmission?" Yu asked. "The original Villani distress call started its journey 2 weeks ago, sir. Captain Lee's report is 6 days old. By the time we could get any ships to that system, it will be 3 weeks since the aliens called for help." "They might already be dead," whispered Lieutenant Colonel Kang Mi-young, who had just arrived. "Or they might not be," Yu said firmly. "Jin-woo, wake up everyone. I want all department heads in the briefing room in 30 minutes and get me a direct line to President Oh Hyun-woo." "Sir, it's 3 in the morning. "I don't care if it's Christmas morning. Wake him up." Within an hour, the emergency meeting was in full session. President Oh sat at the head of the table, looking tired but alert. Around him were the Federation's top military commanders, scientists, and political leaders. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," the president said. "An unknown alien species is committing genocide against another alien species, and they asked for help from anyone who could hear them." "That's correct, sir," Admiral Yu confirmed. "And based on Captain Lee's report, these Devourers have already destroyed at least 20 other civilizations." Dr. Kim Soo-jin, the Federation's chief alien specialist, raised her hand. "Sir, we've never encountered anything like this before. Our first contact protocols don't cover this situation. Then we make new protocols," said General Kang Mi-young. She was the head of the Federation ground forces and known for her direct approach to problems. "The question is simple. Do we help or do we ignore it?" "It's not that simple," argued Secretary of State Lee Dong-hyun. "These aliens are not our responsibility. We barely have enough ships to protect our own colonies." "Listen to that message again," President Oh said quietly. The Villani voices filled the room once more, begging the universe to remember them. When it finished, the president stood up. "I have 3 children. If someone was trying to kill them and they called out for help, I would want anyone who heard them to respond. It doesn't matter if they're human or alien." "Sir," Secretary Lee said, "this could start a war with a species that has already destroyed 20 civilizations." "Secretary Lee, this war already started," the president replied. "The Devourers started it when they decided to wipe out entire species. The only question is whether we're going to let them finish unopposed." Admiral Yu pulled up tactical displays. "Sir, I can have the 3rd Fleet ready to depart within 48 hours. That's 12 heavy cruisers and supporting vessels." "That's not enough," General Kang said. "If these creatures can destroy civilizations, we need everything we have." "Everything?" Secretary Lee looked shocked. "That would leave Earth and the colonies completely defenseless." "Defenseless against what?" President O asked. The only threat we know about is the Devourers, and they're in the Cathara system. The debate continued for hours, but something had changed in the room. The Villani message had touched something deep in the human leaders. Finally, President O called for a vote. All in favor of authorizing a full military response to assist the Villani survivors? 7 hands went up. Only Secretary Lee voted against it. Motion carried. Admiral Yu, you have authorization to deploy any and all available Federation forces to the Cathara system. Rules of engagement are simple. Protect the innocent. Destroy the threat. As the meeting ended, Admiral Yu began making calls. Within hours, every Federation base received the same message. Operation Rescue Hope is authorized. All available ships report to rally points immediately. The response was incredible. Captain Nam Ji-hoon, commanding the heavy cruiser Indomitable, was the first to respond. Admiral, my ship is ready now. We don't need to wait for the full fleet. Negative, Captain. We go together or not at all. But it wasn't just the military that responded. The news of the Villani genocide had leaked to the civilian networks, and the reaction was unlike anything in human history. On Earth, Cho Min Seo, a cargo ship captain, called the Navy Recruitment Office. I want to volunteer my ship for the rescue mission. Sir, you're not military personnel. I don't care. Those people asked for help, and I'm going to help them. Within 24 hours, hundreds of civilian ships had volunteered. Cargo vessels, passenger liners, even small personal spacecraft. Their owners all said the same thing. We heard the children crying. We have to do something. The Federation had never seen anything like it. Factory workers volunteered for extra shifts to build more weapons. Medical personnel requested transfers to the rescue fleet. Even children began organizing fundraisers to support the mission. Dr. Shin Hae-young, a pediatric doctor from Seoul, summed up the feeling when she spoke to reporters. Those alien children sound just like human children when they're scared. How can we listen to that and do nothing? 2 days later, Admiral Yu stood on the bridge of his flagship, Terra's Vengeance, looking at the largest fleet in human history. Over 300 ships floated in formation around him. Military vessels, civilian volunteers, converted cargo ships, and hastily armed passenger liners. All of them carried the same message painted on their hulls. For the Villani. Admiral, reported his communications officer, all ships report ready for hyperspace jump. Any word from Captain Lee and the Iron Will? They're holding position at the edge of the Cathara system, sir. Still monitoring for Villani survivors. Yu nodded. Signal the fleet. Begin hyperspace sequence. Sir? Asked his tactical officer. What are our orders if we find the Villani are already dead? The Admiral thought about the children's voices in the message. Then we make sure this never happens to anyone else. We find these Devourers' home base, and we destroy it completely. As the massive human fleet jumped to hyperspace, a message was already racing ahead of them toward Cathara. Captain Lee had received orders to broadcast it to any surviving Villani on all frequencies. Villani survivors, this is Admiral Yu Sung-min of the Terran Federation. We received your call for help. We are coming with the largest fleet humanity has ever assembled. Hold on. Help is on the way. In the deep caves of Cathara's northern mountains, Elder Veltai heard the message and collapsed to his knees in amazement. After 3 weeks of hiding from the Devourers, help was finally coming. But he didn't understand what kind of help the humans were bringing. The Villani were a peaceful species who had never known war. They couldn't imagine what would happen when a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare decided to protect the innocent. The Devourers were about to find out what humans do when children ask for help. The massive human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cathara system like an avalanche of metal and fury. Admiral Yu Sung-min stood on the bridge of Terra's Vengeance and stared at what the Devourers had done to the planet. In the 3 weeks since Captain Lee first discovered the invasion, Cathara had become a gray, lifeless ball. The oceans were gone. The atmosphere was thin and poisonous. The continents looked like they had been chewed by giant teeth. My God, whispered Commander Choi Yun-soo, Yu's second in command. They ate the whole planet. Not the whole planet, reported Dr. Han Yu-jin, who had transferred from the Iron Will to the flagship. I'm still detecting life signs in the mountain caves. Weak signals, but they're there. How many? Yu asked. Maybe a few hundred. Out of billions. The bridge fell silent. They were too late to save the Villani civilization. But they might still save some lives. Admiral, called Captain Nam Ji-hoon from the Indomitable. The Devourer fleet is moving toward us. They don't look friendly. The alien ships were indeed approaching, but they moved slowly, like they weren't worried about the human fleet. There were more of them now, at least 500 vessels of various sizes, all connected by the pulsing tubes that made them look like a living organism. Open a channel to all ships, Yu ordered. This is Admiral Yu to all Federation forces. Our mission is simple. Protect the survivors and eliminate the threat. Any ship that wants to surrender may do so now. From the largest Devourer vessel came a response that chilled everyone who heard it. It wasn't a voice. It was thousands of voices speaking together, including some that sounded human. We are the collective. We consume. We grow. Your species will join us or become food. Resistance is futile. Well, said Commander Choi, I guess diplomacy is off the table. All ships, Yu broadcasted, weapons free. Show them what humans do to child killers. The battle began immediately. The Devourer ships launched thousands of small attack vessels that looked like metal insects. They moved fast and attacked in swarms, trying to overwhelm human defenses. With numbers. But the humans had been preparing for this moment for 3 weeks. Every ship in the fleet had been armed with the newest weapons technology. Captain Shin Yoon-ji, flying the experimental Fighter Reaper, led the first wave of human fighters. This is Reaper Squadron, she broadcast. We're going in. The human fighters moved like nothing the Devourers had ever seen. Instead of trying to match the alien swarms with numbers, they used precision and teamwork. Each human pilot protected the others, creating a wall of coordinated fire that destroyed hundreds of alien ships in the first few minutes. Incredible, muttered the collective voice. These humans fight differently than other species. The difference became clear as the battle continued. Every other species the Devourers had encountered fought to win or to survive. The humans fought to protect. Major Bae Young-soo led the first ground assault teams toward Kethara's surface. His mission wasn't to attack the enemy. It was to rescue survivors. While the space battle raged around them, his dropships flew through the crossfire toward the mountain caves where the Villani were hiding. This is insane, said Sergeant Kim Tae-hyun, as laser fire lit up the sky around their ship. We're flying into a war zone to pick up aliens we've never met. Those aliens asked for help, BAE replied calmly. We don't abandon people who ask for help. The human approach confused the Devourers completely. They had absorbed 20 civilizations, and all of them had fought the same way, trying to destroy the invaders while protecting themselves. But the humans were doing both at the same time, and they were doing it better than anyone the collective had ever seen. Admiral Yu watched the tactical display and smiled grimly. The Devourer ships were powerful, but they were designed for overwhelming weak enemies, not for fighting a coordinated military force. Target their connection tubes, he ordered. If we can separate their ships, they can't work together as effectively. The human heavy cruisers focused their fire on the pulsing tubes that connected the Devourer vessels. When the tubes were destroyed, something interesting happened. The alien ships became slower and less coordinated. They're not just connected physically, Yujin reported. Those tubes carry information, they're part of a hive mind. Then let's give them something to think about, Yu said. All ships concentrate fire on the largest vessel. Let's cut off the head of this snake. The Terra's Vengeance and 12 other heavy cruisers turned their main guns on the Devourer. Command ship. It was enormous, easily 10 times larger than any human vessel, but it had been built to process planets, not fight wars. Under the concentrated fire from the human fleet, the command ship's armor began to crack. Strange fluids leaked out, and some of its weapon systems went dark. The collective is screaming. reported the communications officer. They're afraid. It was true. For the first time in their existence, the Devourers were facing an enemy that might actually defeat them. They had grown used to easy victories against peaceful civilizations. They didn't know how to fight against humans who had spent their entire history learning how to kill each other, and who had now turned all that knowledge toward protecting others. Captain Shin Yun-ji saw her chance. The Devourer command ship's shields were failing, and there was a gap in its defenses near what looked like a major power source. "Reaper to all fighters," she broadcast. "I'm going in for a final run. Cover me." "Negative, Reaper," Admiral Yu called. "That's a suicide mission." "Sir, if I can take out their command ship, the rest of their fleet will be confused. It might give us the edge we need to save the survivors." Yu knew she was right, but he hated asking any of his people to sacrifice themselves. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" "Admiral, those Villani children asked the universe for help. This is how we help them." Shin flew her fighter straight at the massive alien ship, dodging weapons fire and explosions. Her squadron followed as far as they could, clearing a path through the Devourer defenses. At the last second, she activated her ship's self-destruct sequence and aimed for the command ship's power core. Her last transmission was simple. "For the Villani, for the innocent, for everyone who can't fight back." The explosion lit up the entire system. The Devourer command ship broke apart in a chain of secondary explosions, taking dozens of smaller vessels with it. Without their central controlling intelligence, the remaining Devourer ships became confused and disorganized. Some fled toward the edge of the system. Others turned on each other. A few simply shut down completely. "All ships," Admiral Yu broadcast, "finish them off. Don't let any escape to threaten other worlds." The human fleet pursued the fleeing Devourers with ruthless efficiency. These creatures had murdered billions of innocent beings across 20 civilizations. There would be no mercy, no quarter given. Major Bay's rescue teams reached the Villani survivors, just as the last Devourer ship was destroyed. The aliens were in terrible condition, starving, terrified, and traumatized by weeks of hiding from the monsters that had eaten their world. Elder Veltai was among the survivors, barely alive but still conscious. When he saw the human soldiers, he couldn't speak for several minutes. "You came," he finally whispered in his musical language, which the translation computers turned into human words. "We called out to the darkness and you came. We heard your children crying," BAE said simply. "We couldn't ignore that." As the rescue ships carried the last few hundred Villani to safety, Admiral Yu surveyed the battlefield. His fleet had won a complete victory. The Devourer threat was ended, at least in this system. But the victory had come at a cost. 17 ships had been destroyed, and over 1,000 human lives had been lost. Captain Shin Yun-ji would never see her family again, also that a few hundred alien survivors could live. Was it worth it? Asked Commander Choi. Admiral Yu looked at the medical ships where human doctors were caring for Villani children who had been orphaned by the genocide. "Ask me that question again after you've heard an alien child laugh for the first time in weeks." The Battle of Cathara was over. The Devourers were defeated, but the galaxy was about to learn that humanity had a new role among the stars, as protectors of those who could not protect themselves. 1 year after the Battle of Cathara, Admiral Lee Taemin stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above the restored planet. The view through the massive windows showed a world that was green and blue again, with white clouds drifting across new oceans. It had taken the combined efforts of the entire Terran Federation to bring Cathara back to life. Engineer ships had worked for months to restore the atmosphere. Terraforming vessels had replanted forests and rebuilt ecosystems. Medical ships had cared for the traumatized Villani survivors while they slowly began to heal. "Admiral," said Dr. Han Yu-jin, joining him at the window, "the latest reports from the surface are encouraging. The Villani birth rate is increasing, and the children are starting to play again." Taemin nodded but didn't smile. The victory had come at a terrible cost. Over 1,000 human lives lost, hundreds of ships destroyed, and trillions of Federation ore. credits spent on restoration, all to save a few hundred members of an alien species that most humans had never heard of before. Any regrets? Yujin asked, knowing what he was thinking. Every day, Tai-Min admitted. But then I remember the alternative. The alternative had become clear in the months following the battle. As human exploration ships spread out from Cathara, they had found the remains of the other civilizations the Devourers had consumed. 20 worlds, each one a graveyard where billions had died screaming for help that never came. Elder Veltai wants to see you, Yujin said. He's in the cultural center with the other survivors. Tai-Min made his way through the station's corridors, passing human technicians and Vellani workers rebuilding their civilization together. It still amazed him how quickly the two species had learned to cooperate, despite being completely different in almost every way. The cultural center was a large room filled with Vellani art and music. The survivors had been working for months to preserve what remained of their culture, recording songs and stories and traditions so they wouldn't be lost forever. Elder Veltai was sitting with a group of Vellani children, teaching them the old songs. When he saw Tai-Min, his large eyes brightened with joy. Admiral, Veltai said in his musical voice, you honor us with your presence. The old Vellani was the last surviving leader of his people. He had watched his entire civilization die, had hidden in caves for weeks expecting to be the next victim, and somehow still managed to radiate hope and kindness. Elder, you know you don't need to call me Admiral anymore. The war is over. The war may be over, but you are still the one who answered our call. You will always be Admiral to the Vellani. Tai-Min sat down with the group. The Vellani children gathered around him, chattering in their singing voices. They had learned some human words and liked to practice them. Admiral Tai-Min, said one small child named Kether, will you tell us again about the big ships that came to help us? It was a story Tai-Min had told many times, but the children never got tired of hearing it. How the human fleet had jumped into the system like avenging angels. How Captain Shin Yunji had sacrificed herself to destroy the Devourer command ship. How Major BAE and his rescue teams had risked everything to pull survivors from the caves. Why did the humans come? Asked another child. We were not your people. It was a question the Vellani asked often, and one that humans found difficult to answer. How could they explain that they had simply heard children crying for help and couldn't ignore it? Because, Tai-Min said carefully, when someone asks for help, good people try to give it. It doesn't matter if they're human or Vellani or any other species. Elder Veltai nodded approvingly. This is what we are learning about humans. You fight not to conquer, but to protect. Not all humans, Tai-Min said honestly. We've done terrible things to each other throughout our history, but we've also learned that the strongest among us should protect the weakest. And now you protect us, Veltai said. But what happens when you find others who need protection? It was a good question, and one that the Federation leadership had been discussing for months. Word of the Battle of Cathara had spread throughout known space. Other alien species were sending messages to Earth, some asking for trade agreements, others requesting protection from various threats. We've established the protection protocol, Tai-Min explained. Any species facing genocide or extinction can call for human assistance. We'll respond if we're able. And if you're not able, then we'll do what we can and hope it's enough. As the cultural session ended and the children ran off to play, Elder Veltai walked with Tai-Min to the station's main communication center. The room was always busy now, with operators monitoring signals from across the galaxy. Admiral, called Lieutenant Park So-Young, who had requested permanent assignment to the Cathara station. We're receiving a distress signal from the Altair system. It's in the same pattern as the original Vellani message. Tai-Min felt his heart sink. Another species in trouble. Another call for help from the darkness. What do we know about them? They call themselves the Zephyrians, sir. Peaceful traders very similar to the Vellani. They say something called the Star Eaters is destroying their colonies one by one. How many ships can we spare? Captain Nam Ji-hoon's task force is available. 20 ships, including the Indomitable. Send them, Taimin ordered without hesitation. Elder Veltai watched as the human officers efficiently organized another rescue mission. You do this knowing you might lose more of your people? Yes. Why? Taimin thought about Captain Shin Yunji and all the others who had died at Kithara. Because if we don't, who will? 3 hours later, Captain Nam's task force jumped to hyperspace carrying a message ahead of them. Zephyrian survivors, this is Captain Nam Ji-hoon of the Terran Federation. We received your distress call. Hold on. Help is coming. As word of the new mission spread through the station, something interesting happened. Vellani volunteers began reporting to the human ships asking to join the rescue mission. We cannot fight as humans do, Veltai explained to Taimin, but we can help with medical care, engineering, and communications. We know what it is like to cry for help in the darkness. We want to be part of the answer when others cry out. Within weeks, the first joint human Vellani rescue fleet departed for the Altair system. It was the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history. An alliance formed not for conquest or trade, but purely for the protection of the innocent. 6 months later, Taimin stood once again at the observation window. But this time, he was not alone. Captain Nam had returned with good news. The Zephyrians had been saved and the Star Eaters had been defeated. More importantly, the Zephyrians had joined the growing alliance of species committed to protecting others. You? No, Dr. Eugene said, joining him at the window. Historians are going to call this the beginning of a new age. What kind of age? The age when the galaxy learned that strength should be used to protect the weak, not exploit them. Through the window, they could see ships from a dozen different species working together around Kithara. Human engineers worked alongside Vellani artists and Zephyrian traders, all united by the simple idea that no one should die alone in the darkness when others could help. Admiral, So-Young called from her communication station, we're receiving another distress signal. This one is from the Vega system. Taimin sighed. There would always be another call for help, another species in danger, another chance for humanity to prove that strength could be used for good instead of evil. Prep the rescue fleet, he ordered, and send the standard message. As the newest distress call played through the communications center, Elder Veltai smiled. The voice was different, more like music than the Vellani songs, but the message was the same. Someone was in trouble. Someone needed help. And this time, they weren't calling into empty darkness. This time, someone would answer. The message that went out ahead of the human rescue fleet was simple. We heard your call. We are coming. You are not alone. In the deep space between stars, other species listened to human communications and began to understand something new about the galaxy. The strongest species in known space, the ones with the biggest ships and the deadliest weapons, were using all that power not to conquer, but to protect. It was a concept that would change everything. The age of predators was ending. The age of protectors had begun.